Go ahead, counsel.
May I proceed? Thank you, Your Honor. Sergeant Robel. This particular tape we're talking about, 345, was not made for the express purpose of representing how this bell sounded inside of Mr. Jackson's room when the bell went off, was it?
No, you are correct.
Okay, and the equipment that was used, the sound recording. It's a video. It's part of a videotape, right?
I believe so, yes.
And the sound recording device that was used, are you familiar with that particular device?
I'm really not.
Okay, do you know if it measures the decibel level of the sounds that it's recording?
No, I don't believe so.
And this particular tape doesn't preserve in any way the decibel levels of the sounds that it's recording, does it?
I don't believe so.
Alright, now, you've listened to this carefully, I take it, this 345, is that right?
Yes.
And it is, in part, a scene where you were talking with a gentleman about the keypad, and getting the correct combination to go into the suite of rooms that we've described as Michael Jackson's bedroom suite. The first floor, second floor, that area, correct?
Correct.
So you're talking to him, he's giving some instructions. And in the background, if you listen, you can hear the bell ringing, is that correct, while you're still in the hallway?
Up by the keypad, I believe you're correct, yes.
In other words, I'm talking about, you reviewed this.
Right.
Trying to remember what this shows. Okay?
Right.
This particular 345. You start to hear a fairly faint bell as you're standing in the hallway before you go through the door, correct? You start to hear on this tape.
I just need clarification. When you talk about the door, are you talking about the first set of doors that we're going through going down the hallway, or talking about the double doors to Michael's bedroom?
The double doors to Michael's bedroom, what we're calling Michael's bedroom. This is where you have the first floor and you go back and there's a second floor, right?
Okay, the second floor I'm familiar with inside his bedroom, yes.
So we're talking about going through the double doors that lead you down 3 or 4 steps into a living room area, correct?
Correct.
And then behind that is the door and the stairway to a second floor, is that correct?
Correct.
Alright, so we're at those double doors. You're in this video that you have reviewed, Exhibit 345. You and some other officers are up there at or near this front double door area that goes into this living room. Is that right?
Correct.
And the cameraman. I was going to move back, but then you wouldn't be able to hear me, or somebody wouldn't. The cameraman is standing back a few paces behind all of you. Is that correct?
I believe so. I don't know exactly where he was. But he was behind me, yes.
And the microphone, to pick up the sound, is on his camera. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Didn't have a boom mic or somebody else wasn't mic'd in this situation.
Correct.
Alright, and when you reviewed this, at some point you start to hear the dinging of the bell that's fairly faint from the cameraman's position in the hallway. Is that correct?
Where I heard it was when I was standing at the keypad. That's when I first heard it.
Alright, and I'm talking about this. What this depicts.
Right.
This depicts sound picked up from this cameraman back in the hallway, and the bell rings about 12 times. Is that correct?
I didn't count them, but it was more than once, yes.
It was more than 3?
Right.
And it was about 12, was it not, sir?
I would say it was approximately that, yes.
Alright, and as the cameraman, as you come in, and you walk down the few steps into the living room area, you start to walk towards the door that goes up the stairway to Mr. Jackson's bedroom. Is that correct?
I believe so.
And just as you get to his door, that's pretty much where this tape ends, is that right?
I think so, yes.
Okay, and as you're getting to his door, the cameraman is just starting to walk into the room and down the stairs, into this living room area down the stairs, correct?
Correct.
And the sound is becoming louder. The sound of the bell is becoming louder just as the tape ends, is that correct?
Really didn't pay attention as far as whether it was becoming louder or not. I mean, I could hear it, and I was in front. When I was viewing that, I didn't determine whether it was louder or fainter.
In other words, I understand what your recollection of what really happened when you were there is, but what this depicts is a cameraman several paces behind a group of 3 officers and a civilian. Is that correct?
Correct.
And your group, at least the 3 officers, move into the downstairs, and move towards the door to Mr. Jackson's stairway and his upper bedroom, right?
Correct.
And the cameraman is still back. He's behind you, moving up.
Correct.
And the sound is actually louder as you get closer to that bedroom door. Isn't that correct?
I don't know. I don't know until I hear that again. I mean, I viewed that 2 or 3 times, but I never really determined whether it was louder or not.
I have no further questions.
Thank you.
The objection stands.
You may step down. Bring the other witness in.
Wait, I have a question.
All right.
Sergeant Robel, with regard to the bell system itself, is that laser activated, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, yes.
So that every time somebody passes it, it sets it off again?
That is correct.
So when Mr. Sanger asked you if you heard it go 12 times in a row, every time one of the people connected with the walkthrough went through, it would go off again?
Correct.
I'm going to object and move to strike. That is a leading question and
Overruled. You may step down. I'm going to allow the exhibit to go in. Bring the witness in.
Yes, Your Honor.
You may be seated. You're still under oath. Go ahead.
We're activating the disc, Your Honor. It's...
Are you playing it out of your computer?
Do you need input 1?
Your Honor, we'd ask for input 4. Thank you.
Input 4.
Yeah. Whereupon, a portion of a DVD, People's Exhibit 345, was played for the court and jury. Gavin, did you hear the chime go off?
Yes.
Is that the chime that went off when you were visiting Neverland Valley Ranch?
Yes.
Now, I want to ask you a couple more questions and then we'll move on to another subject, okay? But I want to ask you a little bit about some of the drinking that you did at the ranch.
Okay.
Do you know what the term, passed out, means?
Yes.
Tell the jury what that means.
When you, lay down and you, go to sleep and you sleep for a long time and you sleep pretty hard.
During the time that you were at the ranch and you drank alcohol with the defendant, Mr. Jackson, did you ever pass out?
Maybe once or twice, but I don't think I really ever, when I'd go to sleep, I would usually sleep pretty hard, but I don't know about, just sitting somewhere and just, indicating, you know what I mean.
I guess. I wouldn't admit it even if I did. Did you ever get sick?
Yeah.
How did you feel when you got sick?
Felt like, my stomach hurt a lot. I don't think I ever really threw up though. But, I felt, nauseated.
Alright, we're going to move on to another subject now, if we can, and I'm going to show you a couple more exhibits. And I'm going to show them to counsel first, so just give me a moment.
Okay, off-the-record discussion held at counsel table.
Alright, I'm going to hand you an 8 by 10 piece of paper, and ask you if you recognize the notes, that particular exhibit.
Yes.
Is that your handwriting?
Yes.
And you wrote it?
Yes.
Now I'm going to hand you an exhibit marked as 347 for identification purposes. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And whose handwriting is that?
Michael's. It looks like Mike. Yeah, it's Michael's.
And that particular exhibit, 347, was that something that was given to you at one time by Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Alright, Your Honor, I'm going to ask the court's permission to put these on the Elmo, and ask the witness some questions about them, and I move that they be admitted into evidence.
No objection.
They're admitted.
You need to take it off, black screen.
Alright, Gavin, I'm going to ask you to look at the first 2 at the top, and the note makes reference to a trip to Florida. Do you see that?
Yes.
Have you ever been to Florida with Mr. Jackson on more than one occasion?
No, only went there once.
Just the one you testified to?
Yes.
And did you write this note? Do you recall when it was you actually wrote this note to Mr. Jackson?
No, but I think it was toward the beginning, maybe a week or 2 after we came back from Miami.
Was the time that you flew to Miami with Mr. Carter the first time you were ever on the plane?
Mr. Carter.
Tucker, I'm sorry?
Chris Tucker.
Yes?
That was, when I flew to Oakland with him to the Raider game.
Okay.
That was, the first time I was ever in a plane.
Okay.
And this is the first time I was ever on a plane with Michael.
Oh, okay. Alright. Now we're going to show the other exhibit. People's 346, 347, I'm sorry. Well, and the last part of the exhibit, 346, do you recognize that?
Well, not really, but I think I wrote that.
Looks like your handwriting, does it not?
Yeah.
Or does it?
Well, kind of.
Alright, let's put up 347. Now, when the exhibit says, I want you to have a great time in Florida. I'm very happy to be your daddy. Now, do you recall when it was Mr. Jackson gave you this particular note?
No, it was probably around the time that I wrote him those notes. I think Frank gave me those notes. Or, no, I don't think Frank. I think somebody gave me those notes because Michael was busy, and he gave me those notes from Michael.
Did you ever discuss them with Mr. Jackson?
Not really.
But you recognize the handwriting as being his?
Yes.
Alright, you can take that down. Now, in the exhibit, 347, it's signed by Mr. Jackson as Dad. And in the exhibit he makes reference to being your daddy.
Yes.
Had Mr. Jackson ever called you? Asked you, strike that. Had Mr. Jackson ever used the word, daddy, to you prior to the time he wrote this note to you?
I don't know. I would call him Dad sometimes, because I don't really have, a set dad at that time. You know what I mean.
So how long do you think it was between you and Mr. Jackson that you were calling him Dad?
When I was up there.
Up where?
After Miami, a couple weeks after Miami, he started calling me son, and I would call him Dad.
So that was a fairly usual thing between the two of you?
Yeah.
At some point in time, did you participate in a taped interview other than the one with Mr. Bashir?
It wasn't really an interview. It was, where, I don't know what you would refer to, but there was one time when he taped me carrying me across a bridge. I don't know if you're talking about that, but...
Okay. You were filmed, and was this when you had cancer?
Yes.
And when you were filmed in that particular piece, did you ever see that piece?
Yes.
When did you see it for the first time?
We showed it to Chris. And then when he showed it to Chris, that's when I saw it.
Okay. Now, do you know an individual by the name of Hamid?
Yes.
Alright. Where did you meet Hamid for the first time?
I'm not sure. I think he was the guy that filmed Michael carrying me across the bridge, but I'm not sure.
Okay. The time after you came back from Miami, alright?
Okay.
And you were at the ranch, did you ever meet Hamid there?
Yes.
Alright. Tell us about, where were you when you met him?
I don't know, but I was somewhere on the ranch, because I remember he drove us to his house.
He drove you to his house?
From Neverland.
And who is you?
It was me, my mom, my brother and my sister.
And you went to his house. Do you remember where he lived?
No.
Do you remember how long it took to get there?
2 hours, probably.
And when you got there, what did you do?
They had this camera set up in this big sheet thing that was coming down. Well, actually, the first thing, I went there, he had some video games, and I started playing his video games. And then, I don't know, they waited for some people to come, or whatever, and then they came.
Do you remember who the people were you were waiting for?
Dieter.
Anybody else you remember?
I think it was Vinny. We were waiting for Vinny, too.
Is that the first time you ever met Vinny, or had you met him before that?
I think that was the first time I ever met Vinny.
Do you remember anybody else arriving? Let me ask it this way. Did Vinny come alone or was he with somebody?
I think he might have been with Frank. I'm not too sure.
Now, during the time that you were there, did an interview take place or a filming of some kind take place?
Yes.
And who was doing the filming?
I believe it was Hamid.
And do you recall about what time it was when the filming started?
It was really late at night. It probably started around 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock or midnight, one of those, around there, because I remember being really, really tired while I was doing it.
Now, prior to the time that you participated in that interview at Hamid's house, okay?
Uh-huh.
Had anybody ever told you what to say on that interview?
Yes.
And who was that?
Dieter.
And what did Dieter say to you? And it's offered under 1223, Your Honor?
I'll admit this testimony conditionally. The objection is noted.
Objection noted, Your Honor.
Dieter would say, like he was telling us, remember how, Michael told me what to say in the Martin Bashir thing.
Okay.
Dieter was kind of doing the same thing. He was telling us, me, my mom and my brother, my sister, what to say on this tape thing for. They said it was like a rebuttal tape, or something like that.
And what did he tell you to say?
He said that, tell him, Michael helped us a lot and, cured me from cancer practically, and stuff like that.
Did you ever see anything written down about what you were to say?
Yeah, they had it was. I don't think it was really, they had, this paper with a bunch of questions and stuff, but,
And did you get a chance to see the questions before you went on the film?
Yeah.
And did you go over the answers to those questions before you went on to film?
Well, kinda. It wasn't really like we sat down for an hour and was, talking and stuff. It was kind of a brief thing. He wanted us to say this and that, you know what I mean.
Okay. At the time that you participated in this particular video at Hamid's house late in the evening, what was your attitude towards Mr. Jackson?
Well, I liked him a lot. He was like my best friend in the whole world.
Still at this point?
Yes.
Now, on that particular video, you've had a chance to see it since the time it was made, have you not?
Yes.
Was everything that you said on the video true?
Not really.
What parts of that video do you recall as not being true?
I mean, because, I said stuff like that Michael helped me a lot while I had cancer. And, really he wasn't really there all that much.
Anything else?
I'm not too sure. It was a while ago.
I'm sorry?
I'm not too sure. It was a while ago.
That's the one that sticks out in your mind?
Yes.
After what you call the rebuttal tape was filmed that night, do you recall where you went?
I think Vinny and Frank took us to, an inn.
Do you recall what you did the next day?
No, not really.
Do you ever recall having a meeting with some social workers?
Oh, yeah, it was.
When did that occur?
It was in the east, where we used to live on St. Andrews.
Where you used to live on St. Andrews with who?
Jay.
Who else lived there with you?
My mom, my brother.
Your sister?
I don't think she lived there. I think she was at my grandma's.
Now, just so the ladies and gentlemen of the jury can understand, in relationship to the Hamid rebuttal film that you've talked about, okay. Was the meeting with the social workers before or after that?
It was. I'm pretty sure it was after.
Do you remember who was present during that interview?
The social worker one.
Yeah?
It was me, my brother, my mom. Asja was there, Chris's girlfriend.
Okay.
And the social worker ladies. And I think Vinny was there. But I don't think he was upstairs. I'm not too sure. And there was this guy in a blue shirt.
Describe the guy in the blue shirt for us?
I think he had black hair and light skin, kind of like me. And he was wearing, dress pants and dress shoes and, a blue shirt.
Can you describe what he was like physically?
Well, probably 5'11" or something like that. And about my body mass, but, just bigger.
Do you know who that person was? Did he introduce himself to you?
No.
Were you present when he arrived?
Yes.
Did you hear him identify himself at any time to anybody?
No.
Did you at any time while you were there see a tape recorder that morning?
Yes.
And where did you see a tape recorder?
I saw it on our kitchen counter. Yeah, on our kitchen counter.
And did you ever see anybody pick up the tape recorder?
I think I saw my mom pick it up, yeah.
And did you ever see your mom discuss talking to this other individual you've described as the...
I saw him and my mom go into another room where my mom and my stepdad slept. And I don't know, they were talking in there, I guess.
Did you see where the tape recorder was at the time they went into the bedroom?
No, I think it might have been in my mom's hand, but I'm not sure.
When you actually had the interview with the social workers, did everybody remain in there during the interview?
No, I think Brad left yeah, that's his name, Brad, because I was just thinking, like, Brad, because, wasn't it Brad Miller?
I'm not testifying?
Oh, okay, alright.
Alright, so somebody left?
Yeah.
Alright, and who was left during the interview?
Me, my mom, my brother, and my sister, I think.
And do you recall the questions that the social workers asked you?
They asked me about Michael
And do you remember what you told them?
Yeah.
What did you tell them?
I told them that he was a nice guy, and that, like the stuff that we said on the rebuttal tape.
Pretty much the same stuff?
Yeah.
Do you remember? Did they ask you whether or not you slept in a bed with Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
And what did you say?
I said that we do now, because we were over at the ranch, but I told them that nothing happens when we're on the bed.
I'm sorry?
I told them nothing, like, bad happens.
Was that the truth?
At the time, yes.
After the interview with the social workers, do you remember where you went?
I think we went back up to Neverland with Asja.
And by we, who do you mean?
Me, my brother, my sister.
And when you went back up to the ranch, when was the next time you left, if you recall?
Left from the ranch.
Yeah. Do you remember going anywhere after you got back up there from the social workers?
Yeah.
Did you at any time ever go shopping with Frank or Vinny?
Yes.
Alright. Tell the jury where that occurred.
Well, we went to a mall, and they took us to a place called Anchor Blue.
And what did you do at Anchor Blue?
They bought us clothes because we didn't have any clothes. We didn't have that many clothes.
Now, why were they buying you clothes?
Because they didn't really want us to go back to our apartment, so they had us buy clothes from there.
Now, at the time that you went to Anchor Blue and they bought you these clothes, where were you staying at that point in time?
I believe I was staying, yeah. That's when I was staying at the the Calabasas Inn place. The inn in Calabasas.
Okay. And who was there with you?
My mom, my brother, and my sister, and Frank and Vinny.
Now, were Frank and Vinny in the same room as you?
No.
Do you recall where their room was, if you know?
No, I'm pretty sure it was down the hall.
Now, at the time that you went to the Calabasas Inn and you went shopping with Frank and Vinny, did you go any other places?
Yes.
Where?
They went to get us visas and passports.
And why were you getting visas and passports?
Because they said they were going to take us to Brazil.
When did you first learn that you were going to go to Brazil?
From Dieter.
And when did you first learn from Vinny and Frank Tyson that they were going to take you out and buy you clothes and things?
I don't remember. It was probably a few days after when I found out from Dieter. But I'm not sure.
Did you actually go with them when the passports and the visas were obtained?
Yes.
And were both Vinny and Frank with you?
I believe so. I think Vinny was there. I don't think Frank was there.
Now, what was your understanding about when you were going to go to Brazil?
A few weeks after we got our visas.
Now, did you, in the presence of the defendant in this case, Mr. Jackson, ever have a conversation about the trip to Brazil?
Yes.
And who else was present during that conversation?
Frank.
Frank Tyson?
Yes.
And where did that conversation take place?
In his room.
In his room.
Michael's room.
And which part of the room in his house?
On his bed. Like, Frank was on his knees, his hands were over the bed like that, indicating.
And where were you?
Me and Michael were laying on the bed.
Alright, tell us about the conversation?
Objection. Vague.
Sustained.
How did the subject of Brazil come up?
Frank was getting angry because my mom didn't want to go. And then Frank was yelling because he was, like, oh, we have a tutor over there and we still haven't left, and we ended up paying for a tutor, or something like that. And then Michael he didn't really respond much, but he was, like, nodding his head, like.
You've nodded your head which way?
Up and down.
To you, what does that mean?
Yeah, Yes.
Okay. And how many times did you see Mr. Jackson nod his head up and down?
A few times.
Did Mr. Jackson ever say anything to you about going to Brazil?
Yeah.
What did he say?
He said that we were going to go to Brazil and that we were going to have a good time.
Do you remember anything else Mr. Jackson said to you about that trip?
That he was going to come a week later after we got there.
Now, let's go back to the point that you were at Calabasas at the inn. Okay?
Uh-huh.
Now, you tell us that Frank and Vinny were there, is that correct?
Yes.
Did you see any other people there that Frank and Vinny knew? You just have to answer that, yes, or no, first, and then I'll ask you the next question.
No.
Okay. Did you see anybody in the lobby?
The lobby of the inn.
Yeah?
I don't think so.
When you were at the Calabasas Inn, did you feel you were free to come and go as you pleased?
No.
Why not?
Because they had our cards to our hotel, to our room, or whatever.
Who did?
Vinny and Frank had the cards, the key cards.
Did you ever try to go anywhere?
Not really, because even if we tried to go out in the hallway or anything, they would tell us to go back in our room.
Objection. Calls for speculation. Move to strike.
Overruled.
Your Honor, I'm going to need just a second. Can I go this way or, excuse me, Mr. Oxman? All right?
Do you want me to take this stuff out?
No, that's all right. Just leave it in for right now. I've placed in front of you the exhibit book, and in that exhibit book is what we're calling Exhibit 260. Okay?
All right.
Do you recognize the piece of paper in front of you?
Kinda.
Do you recognize the photograph of the person in that piece of paper?
Yes.
And do you remember when it was that that photograph was taken, where it was taken?
I think it was when we were getting, like, our visas or our passports, or whatever like that.
Now, on that particular document, there's, by your picture on the document is a signature line, correct?
Yes.
Is that your signature?
Right next to my name. Oh, well, it's my name.
I know. But is that your signature?
Not really.
Do you recall ever filling that application out?
No.
Do you remember anybody ever telling you were going to go to Italy or France?
No. They always told me I was going to go to Brazil.
All right. Now, I want you to turn. I put a little pink pad. Do you see it at the top?
Yes.
Okay. Would you turn to that document? This is in 261.
Okay.
That's a document from the Brazilian consulate, correct?
Yes.
I couldn't hear you.
Yes.
And again, it has your photograph on it?
Yes.
And do you recall ever filling out that application? Let me put it this way. Is that handwriting on the application yours?
No.
Do you remember going to the Brazilian consulate?
Yes.
Do you recall who you went with?
Vinny.
Were there any other people present with you?
My mom, my brother, and my sister, I think.
All right. You can close that up, Gavin. You told us that you recall going to the shopping outlet, or a mall of some kind, to go to Anchor Blue.
Yes.
Do you recall any other places that you went to buy clothes?
No, I think we just went to that place.
Were there times that anybody would buy things for you and bring them back to the room for you?
Yes.
Who did that?
I think it was, I don't know. Probably Vinny. They bought me some shoes.
Was this while you were at the Calabasas Inn?
No, this is up in Neverland.
Okay. Was there any times when you were at the Calabasas Inn where people would buy you things and bring them back, that you recall?
Maybe food once, but no.
But not clothes?
No.
Did you have a suitcase with you?
For my clothes?
No. For going to Brazil?
No, I don't think so.
Do you know what you were going to pack your stuff in?
Well, we came down there with a suitcase, but I don't think the suitcase was for us to go to Brazil, because I think we were going to go back up to Neverland, and later we were going to go to Brazil somewhere.
Where did you get the suitcase?
They bought us a suitcase.
Who's they?
Vinny and Frank.
All right. Now, after you come back from Calabasas. Okay. The trip that you told the ladies and gentlemen of the jury about. After you came back. Did you go back to Neverland?
After that, with Vinny and them to get the visas and passports.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And Mr. Jackson, was he there?
To Neverland. I don't think he was.
Did he come, at some point, after that?
Yes.
And where did you sleep when Mr. Jackson, after Calabasas? When Mr. Jackson was on the premises, where did you sleep?
When Michael Jackson was there.
Yeah?
I would sleep in his room.
With who?
It would be me and my brother and Michael. And sometimes Aldo would sleep there, too.
Was there ever any times when there was just you and Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
And when, in relationship to when you came back to the ranch after the Calabasas trip, was that?
That was, like, toward the end, like when, like maybe a month in relation to the end, where we finally left for good.
Do you remember leaving for good?
Yes.
And do you remember how it was you left for good? What happened?
I'm not too sure, but I'm not sure. I'm not too sure how we left, but I remember being there, and, like, Frank came down. I was trying to think. They were knocking on the door and stuff, and they left some stuff that we had with us up there in front of our door.
At your home?
Yeah.
After you left?
Yeah.
Is that your suitcase?
Yes. They bought us suitcases.
Now, after the time you came back from Calabasas, and before you left, all right?
Uh-huh.
Were there any nights where there were just you and Mr. Jackson sleeping together?
Yes.
And were there nights, after you came back from Calabasas and before you left, where you drank any alcoholic beverages?
Can you repeat? I mean, with Michael or?
With anybody?
We would only really drink with Michael, so?
All right. So when you came back from Calabasas and Mr. Jackson was there, did you drink with him?
Yes.
Was there ever an occasion when you were on the ranch? I'm not talking about back when you were sick with cancer or when you were there with Chris Tucker, but from the time you came back from Miami till the time you left for the very last time.
Yes.
Okay. Was there ever an occasion where you and Mr. Jackson were on the ranch at the same time that you didn't drink?
No, I don't think so, because it would usually be at nighttime when we would drink. And we'd rarely drink in the daytime. Sometimes, like while we were in his office, we'd usually drink some wine or whatever. But it was usually toward it was getting dark, and we would start running to the arcade, and played video games and drink and stuff. But every time Michael was there, we would drink.
Okay, Gavin. We're just going to do a little bit of cleanup work here. Okay?
Okay.
I've handed you a photograph that's marked as People's Exhibit 188. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
Hang on just a second. We got some technical difficulties. We're not going to need the lights, Your Honor. I'm not going to. Thank you. That's dark enough. Okay, 188. Gavin, do you see what that is?
Yes. I'm sorry.
I'm not keeping you awake, am I? Laughter.
All I need is a pillow.
All right. 188. What is that?
It's the front door to Neverland. Or the front entrance to Neverland.
The front entrance for what at Neverland?
Not Neverland. The main house at Neverland, sorry.
Mr. Jackson's house?
Yes.
Why don't you turn that over? Now, what's the next photograph?
It's like you're in the hallway.
No, wait a minute. Go ahead?
You're like in the hallway to go to his room. And this is at the door.
The door to what?
The door that would like, if you opened it, the chimes rung.
And are you talking about the bedroom or the main room?
The bedroom. Well.
Downstairs or upstairs?
Downstairs.
Okay. Why don't you turn that over? And that's a picture of who?
Hamid.
And what number is that?
29.
All right. And the next picture is of?
Jesus Solace.
And that is number 30.
Yes.
All right. Would you turn that over? Do you recognize those pictures of the people? And who's that and what number is it?
It's 19.
And who is that?
Vinny.
Yes. So in your testimony here, the person you referred to as Vinny, that's the person you were talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Turn that over. And the next photograph?
That's the country, well, that's the inn that we stood at.
When you went shopping that time?
Yes.
Okay. Turn that over now. What's the number on the next one? By the way, let's go back one, Gavin. I don't think I got the numbers. Is that 125?
Yes.
Alright. By that, I mean the Calabasas Inn photograph?
Yes.
Alright. Now, let's go to the next one. And what number is that?
99.
Alright. And what is that?
That's the arcade.
So, in your testimony when you were talking about going into the arcade down to the wine cellar, that's the building that you were talking about?
Yes.
Alright. Why don't you turn that one over?
Judge, 99 hasn't been identified.
It hasn't.
No.
Do you recognize that? Is that an accurate depiction of that photograph, 99?
Well, that's the side of the arcade, but the front entrance is, like, over here. Well, the entrance to the arcade is over here.
Let me have the photograph. Move that. Apparently 99 is not in evidence, Your Honor, the clerk tells us. And I've shown it to counsel, and I don't think he has any problem with it?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, admitted.
Getting dangerous back here. The cords came up, Your Honor. All right, I have one other photograph I want to show you.
Okay.
This is 153, and it's in evidence?
Uh-huh.
We're going to display that, Your Honor. There's going to be some testimony about it.
Do you need it on 1 or 4?
Could we have that on 1, Your Honor? All right. Do you recognize what's up on the board?
Yes.
That's a copy of the photograph that you have in front of you, correct?
Yes.
Now, have you ever seen that mannequin before?
Yes.
Where was it the first time you saw it?
In Michael's room.
You're going to have to turn around and talk into that mic?
Michael's room.
Is that 153 that's on the screen?
It is, Your Honor. I apologize for that. All right. Where was it on the floor?
It was next to the computer on the floor.
Next to the computer on the floor?
Yeah.
Now, where was the computer located in Mr. Jackson's room?
Well, there's the bed, and then like at the foot of the bed, the computer was right there near it was like the railing. It was wood railing to the stairs.
And do you recall what kind of computer it was?
No, it was a desktop computer, but I don't know what kind it was. Like nobody used it, because it was.
I'm sorry?
Nobody used it because it was bad, like it wasn't connected.
The computer that Mr. Jackson gave you, the one that you described as an Apple?
Yes.
Was that a desktop or a laptop?
It was a laptop, the one that he gave me.
Now, directing your attention to the mannequin that's in the photograph in front of you. Okay. Did you ever see Mr. Jackson do anything with that mannequin?
Yes.
Tell us what he did?
Well, me and my brother were looking at the mannequin, and we started laughing at it because it was shaped funny, and then we showed Michael and he started laughing. And then he started acting like he was, like, having sex with the mannequin because it was shaped funny.
I couldn't hear you.
Because it was shaped funny.
Alright, so what did he do with the mannequin?
He acted like he was humping it.
And where was he when he was doing that?
On the bed.
Where were you and your brother?
I was sitting on the bed and I think my brother might have been standing up.
Now, the time that you saw Mr. Jackson on the bed with the mannequin, do you recall whether that happened before or after you went to Calabasas?
I'm not sure. It was probably before, but I'm not too sure.
But you remember the incident?
Yes.
Alright, we can take that down, if you'd like. I'm going to show an exhibit marked as 470.
Uh-huh.
Ever seen that before?
Yes.
Where was it the first time you saw it?
It was next to, like, this. It wasn't really a couch. Well, it felt like a couch, but it was like a one-person couch, and it had, like, this place where you could put your feet up.
Okay.
That was, like, the same material, but it was like a little square cushion thing, and you put your feet up there.
And what building was this?
This was in his room.
Do you know what room it was?
It was in Michael's room. But when you walk in the door, like to the right would be the door to go up to his bed, and then if you walk in there and you walk this way and then go to the right inside this room, and you'd walk and there's a couch thing.
Was there anything else in that room?
Yeah. There was like a sink with a bunch of like, perfumes and colognes. And there was like a big mirror, like three-sided mirror. And then there was a restroom. And then there's a big kind of tub, but kind of looks like a jacuzzi, though.
Now, when you first saw the suitcase, where was it in that room?
It was to the left of that couch thing.
And did you ever see Mr. Jackson pick up the exhibit 470?
Yeah, like I was hanging out with him in there, and he was like putting on his makeup or something, I don't know. And then he grabbed the suitcase, and then he told me it was Frank's. And he showed me, he was like, this is.
Okay. Well, what did he show you?
He was like, look at this stuff. Frank's stinking ass. Frank's stinking, it was Frank's stinking ass.
Alright. What was inside the suitcase?
Adult materials.
And how many did you look at with Mr. Jackson?
Well, he showed me just one. Like he showed me, and there was this girl in there and then he put it away.
And how was the girl?
She had her legs spread open, and her vagina was, like, showing.
Alright. Did you ever see that suitcase again?
Yes.
Where?
We had it up near his bed, and then we were looking at all the stuff.
Who was we?
Me, my brother and Michael.
And do you recall, where in the bedroom was the suitcase when you first saw it that time?
The first time I saw it, it was in the restroom kind of thing. And then the second time I don't know if we brought it up there or, like, Michael brought it up there or something. I don't know, but it was up next to his bed. And we were all going through the thing and we were making fun of Frank.
Did you look at the magazines?
Yes.
How many magazines do you think you saw?
We saw, like, practically everything, but there was a few we didn't look at.
How much time do you figure you were looking at all those things?
30 minutes to an hour, probably.
Did Mr. Jackson make any comments during the time? Other than the ones you've talked about? Any other comments that he made at any of the photographs or the magazines?
Not really. We just were, like, making fun of Frank.
Okay. Now, with regard to the first time you saw it downstairs. Okay. In that room that you described where he puts his makeup on, things like that. Do you remember whether that occurred before or after Calabasas?
Well, while we were in there. That was like.
The first time?
Me and Michael only. When he showed me the thing I said about Frank.
Right?
Okay, that was like the same day that we got back. No. Yeah, the same night we got back from Miami.
Alright, what about the second incident where you were upstairs? When was that in relationship to Calabasas?
A week later, probably, or 2 weeks.
So can you tell us whether that would be before or after Calabasas?
Before Calabasas.
Was there anything else in the suitcase that you saw other than magazines themselves?
There was, like, cut-out pieces of magazines.
What kind of cut-out pieces from the magazines?
Cut-out pieces of, like, girls taking a shower or, like, just girls naked.
Alright, off-the-record discussion held at council table. I have another photograph I'm going to show you. It's 165. Would you take a look at that, please? Do you recognize that?
Yes.
What is that?
It's a telephone that, like, we would listen to, like, security guards talking to, like, their girlfriends and stuff.
How do you know that?
Michael showed me.
Showed you what?
How to, like, because what you do, like when you see one of these lights flashing, it means that someone's on one of those lines, and then you push the line and you can hear them. But once you push it, you can't say anything because they can hear you. And then you push mute, so they can't hear you, and then you can hear who they're talking to and what they're talking about and stuff.
Now, who showed you how to do that?
The first time Michael did.
Now, were you present with Mr. Jackson when he listened in on people's conversations?
Yes.
How many times?
We would do it a lot. Like, we would listen to security guards talking to their girlfriends.
You say, we. Who do you mean by, we?
Me and Michael.
Were there any times when you overheard conversations of your mother?
Yes.
How many times?
Like 3 times. Or once or twice. I don't know.
Were those with Mr. Jackson or were those by yourself?
I think they were with Michael. And then maybe one time I was by myself listening.
Did you ever have a conversation with Mr. Tyson about overhearing conversations?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled.
Yes.
Offered under 1223, Your Honor. What did he tell you?
Objection. Hearsay.
Wait just a second. Let the
all admit it for limited purposes.
go ahead.
Wait, can you repeat the question?
Yeah. What did Mr. Tyson tell you?
About listening to my mom.
Listening to conversations, yes?
He just told me that my mom just told me about him listening to my mom's phone calls talking with Jay.
Did he tell you how many occasions he'd overheard or listened to your mom's conversations?
Objection. Hearsay. And leading.
Overruled. And all again admit it for the conditional use. I said, limited use, but I meant conditional use. Go ahead.
He told me about my mom and how he would listen to him, and he would was talking to me about it kind of angrily, about my mom talking to Jay and saying she wanted to leave, and stuff like that.
That's what Mr. Tyson told you.
Yes.
Alright, you can put that photograph down. Just turn it over. Okay. Now, while you were at Mr. Jackson's ranch, did you ever watch a movie called? It had a title in it that, in Spanish, with subtitles?
Yes.
Do you remember the name of the movie?
No, but it was about like a 1940, or whatever, those years. And it was about a ghost, and like a little kid that got killed, and an older man killed him and put him in, this pool where there was a lot of water. And then the little kid was trying to, warn, all the other orphans in the orphanage, that's where it was, and that they were all going to die, or something like that. It was all in Spanish.
Did you watch that movie on more than one occasion while you were at Mr. Jackson's ranch?
I think we saw it twice. We really liked it.
Pardon?
We really liked it.
Now, while you were watching that movie on any occasion, did you see Mr. Jackson enter the room or was he watching the movie with you?
Well, I'm pretty sure the first time, we were watching the movie with him.
Okay.
But I don't really remember him walking up there while we were watching that. I thought the second time, he was watching with us, too. I'm not too sure.
Did you ever have any conversations with Mr. Jackson with regard to whether it was natural to be naked or nude?
Objection. Leading. Move to strike.
Stricken.
Ask that the prosecutor be admonished.
Well.
Ask another question, please.
Was there ever any occasion where you had, was there ever an occasion where you saw anything with regard to Mr. Jackson coming up the stairs?
Yes.
Objection. Vague.
Overruled.
And where were you when you saw Mr. Jackson coming up the stairs?
Me and my brother were laying on the bed.
And what were you doing?
I think we were just laying there.
Alright. And when Mr. Jackson came up the stairs, did you notice anything?
Yeah, he was naked.
When you say, naked, what do you mean by that?
Not clothes on.
Did Mr. Jackson do or say anything at that point in time?
No, he just ran up and just got something and went back down.
I'm sorry?
I think he just ran up there and got something and went back downstairs.
Do you recall him saying anything at that point?
No.
And what was your reaction to what you saw?
Nothing. It was just kind of like, me and my brother were kind of like, EEUUWW, you know what I mean.
Kind of like what?
Like we never really saw a grown man, naked before.
I want to show you one other exhibit, if we can.
Okay.
Your Honor, I have a brown paper bag that's been marked as 348 for identification purposes. And I've shown it to counsel. And with counsel's permission and the court's permission, I'd like to open the package.
May I just see what's in there, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Do you want to open it, Tom?
I can stand there while you open it.
No, we can do it down here.
To a person in the audience, sit down.
348.
348. Is it all right if I take it out of the bag to show it to the witness?
Yes.
Your Honor, for the record, there was a brown paper bag which has the number 348 on it, and I've broken the seal on the bag, the evidence seal, with counsel, and we've removed from the bag a blue bag. And I'm going to show the blue bag, to the witness at this point.
Blue bag.
Blue. Don't make fun of me. This is a tough job. Alright, okay. Gavin, first of all, with regard to the blue bag, do you recognize the blue bag?
Yes.
And where did you see that blue bag the first time?
That was the case that my brother's sleeping bag came from. It was in, yeah.
It was your brother's star?
That was a case where my brother's sleeping bag was in.
Now, from the blue bag, we took out a number of items, correct?
Yes.
And do you recognize those?
Yes.
And what are those?
They're like my 7th grade or 8th grade, I'm not sure. They're like my junior high school books that I used for school.
And did you have those books with you at Neverland?
Yes.
And do you recall where they were at Neverland?
They were. I think they were. We left them in a restroom on the way to Michael's room.
Now, the exhibits that you just talked about, you recognize all of them, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, Your Honor, I'd like to have them admitted into evidence. 348.
No objection.
They're admitted. Number 348 is admitted.
Okay. And then I'd like to show on the board with the lights, Your Honor, some of the exhibits.
All right. Which input do you need?
Input 1, Your Honor.
Are you ready?
Okay. Gavin, with regard to one of the items that was taken out of 348, do you recognize that, the one that's on the board right now?
Yes.
Would you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what that is?
That's my workbook that I had for English in junior high school.
Okay. Now, let's go to the next one, so we get them all identified. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what class was that from?
Before I left, it was an English class also. It was like Black Education Month.
I don't think we can hear you. You're going to have to turn around and...
Before we had left to go to Neverland, I think it was like Black History Month, and then our teacher wanted us to write about a black person, to write an essay or something.
Did you ever do that?
I never had time to. I never really did, because we came up to Neverland.
So you didn't do the assignment while you were at Neverland?
No.
All right. Is there any other books or materials there?
Yes.
All right. Let's look at the next one. That's just the inside of the first one?
Yeah, that's the inside. And that's my teacher, Miss Super.
Who was that?
Miss Super.
And what are those on the board there?
Those are, like, the assignments that they gave me to do.
Go ahead.
Because my mom asked, or I don't know who. I think my mom asked Frank and Vinny to do it, to get my homework that I needed to do.
All right. And those materials were contained in a little, like a manila envelope?
Yes.
Inside of Exhibit 348?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Now, there's one last book up on the board, if you could. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
Do you see a book in the materials in 348?
Yes.
All right. What is that?
It's because in our program, the United States Naval Sea Cadets, I was going to become an E3, and...
A what?
E3.
Okay.
So I was going to move up rank, because I was E2, and you either have to study and pass a test either from a seaman book, an airman book, or a fireman book. And I chose airman, because I like planes and jets and stuff. So I wanted to study an airman and pass the test, and so I took it up there and I figured I would study.
Did you do it?
No, I studied and then passed the test later.
How long have you been in that program?
I've been in it since, I joined the Navy League when I was 12, and then I went to boot camp. So I've been in it for maybe 3 years.
Where did you go to boot camp?
I went to Sea Cadet Boot Camp in Port Hunima in Ventura, I think.
How long was that?
2 weeks long.
Have you been to any other boot camps associated with the military training?
Yes.
Where?
I went to one in Norfolk, Virginia.
And when was that?
It was during the winter.
And how long was that?
It was also 2 weeks long, or more like 10 days long. It was Petty Officer Leadership Academy. I wanted to become a petty officer, and I wanted to do that so I could gain leadership ability before I went to pass the test for petty officer. So I went to that program, that class, for that training for 2 weeks, and I gained a lot of leadership skills.
Now, I just have one last question. With regard to this program that you were in, how often do you have to go to participate in it?
It's 2 times a month.
On what days?
Every 3rd and 4th Saturday of the month.
All right. I think we can take that down. Counsel, Your Honor, I have a clear plastic bag which contains an orangish bottle inside. I've shown it to counsel. It's 349 for identification purposes. And I'd like to show it to the witness at this time.
All right.
Do you recognize that?
Yes.
What's that?
The doctor would sometimes order a 24-hour period urine test. And so I would have to, because of my kidney and, stuff like that. And so what you do is, you wake up in the morning, and then you start your first pee in the bottle, and then all the pee's on, until that time again. So, say you wake up at 8 o'clock. You say, okay, this is my morning pee. I'm going to go pee in this bottle. And then every pee you have to do till 8 o'clock the next morning you do in the bottle.
Was there ever a time when you were at Neverland Ranch where you had to pee in the bottle?
Yes.
And take it to a doctor?
Yes.
And is that the type of bottle that you used, that you had to use?
Yes.
At any time while you were on the ranch, Neverland Valley Ranch, did you ever have a discussion with Mr. Jackson about you having to pee in that bottle?
Yes.
And when was that discussion? Do you recall?
It was down in the cellar, and I was afraid that.
I mean, let me just ask a few more questions before I ask you what was said. Okay. You told us it was in the cellar?
Yes.
Who else was there?
It was only me and Michael.
Okay. And you're in the cellar. And can you tell us whether it's daytime or nighttime?
I think it was nighttime. Or early night. So it was probably like 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock.
And how did the subject of the urine specimen come up, or urine bottle come up, peeing in the bottle?
I was afraid that the alcohol would show up in my urine, so I asked Michael. I told him, Michael, I think the alcohol might show in my urine.
Objection. Calls for a narrative. Non-responsive. Move to strike.
Overruled.
All right, so you're talking to Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Okay. And you already told us that you told him about the test. Tell us the rest of the conversation, what you told Mr. Jackson.
I told him that I was afraid that the alcohol was going to show up in my urine when they got the test. So I asked him, what should I do? And then he said, just don't take the test.
He said what?
Just don't take the test.
What do you mean, do?
Well, he called a lot of kids, or head.
Did you say anything back to Mr. Jackson when he told you, just don't take the test?
Well, I kind of told him I had to take the test. And he just said, don't take the test. And then after that, I just kind of nodded my head and didn't say anything.
Did you do any drinking after that?
We were already in the wine cellar and I had my glass poured.
Well, did you drink it?
Yeah.
Did Mr. Jackson drink?
Yes.
Now, at some point later, did you tell anybody that you had been drinking alcohol, other than Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Let me rephrase that question, because that's not a good question.
Okay.
At some point, did you tell somebody else that you'd been drinking alcohol in connection with the fact that you had to collect your pee in that bottle?
Yes.
Who was that?
It was my mom.
And do you remember where you were when you told your mom?
I was in Michael's room, and that phone with all the lines, I called my mom up.
Do you know where Mr. Jackson was at the time you made the call?
He was upstairs on the bed.
And when you made the call to your mother, do you remember about what time it was?
Like 4 o'clock in the morning.
And when was it you were supposed to go to the doctor?
Well, I was going to start the test that morning. And so the day after that, I guess.
How long did you tell your mother?
Well,
let me go back. What did you say to your mother?
Well, I called her, and I told her, well, Mom, you know how Jesus drank juice. Jesus drank wine. And then she told me, I don't know. I don't remember what exactly she said. She was like, yeah. And then, I just tried to tell her, and then I'm not really too sure what happened in that conversation. I know I called my mom and I told her, and then.
Do you remember, after you called your mom, anybody coming to the doors and banging on the doors?
Objection. Leading.
Sustained.
Do you remember, after the telephone conversation that you had with your mother, that anything unusual occurred?
No, because after the conversation I went to sleep.
Now, did you at some point go to the doctor's with that bottle there that's in front of you?
Yes.
Objection. Assumes facts not in evidence. Misstates the evidence, and leading.
Overruled. Do you want the question read back?
Yes. Record read.
Okay. It's already in. Okay. We'll take our break.